Hello humans, it's me, Kory Marie, and it's been a minute, so I want to begin again by thanking you so much for letting me share the story of my mother's death with you. Rest assured that it was a very healing process, very cathartic for me, to let go of everything that had happened around her death and to heal that part of myself that I got in touch with by sharing that experience. So that wouldn't have been possible without you if you had not agreed to be a generous listener and allow me to share my story. So thank you so much for that. Since I finished Who Killed My Mother, the podcast, I've received so many amazing emails from really supportive people telling me how much they appreciated the story and how they related to it. For some people, this was because someone they loved had been murdered. Or for other people, it was because they were dealing with mental illness, either themselves or through a family member. Or that there were other people in their family who were stuck in trauma, addiction, or domestic violence cycles. These emails were heartbreaking in a lot of ways, but also really inspiring. Because what I saw when I read them was that there were all these people out there, trying their best every day, doing what they can to take better care of themselves and the people they love, and working really hard to break the trauma cycles that they inherited. But the response I heard the most after I finished the show was, "How are you okay? Kory, how are you fine after everything that's happened to you? Kory, you seem like a functional, successful person out there living your life, and it just seems impossible that you can be functional or successful given everything that's happened to you. How are you okay?" And honestly, my knee-jerk reaction to the question was, well, I'm not okay sometimes. Sometimes I completely lose it. I'm just as prone to doom scrolling or anxiety or yelling at somebody I care about as anybody else. I make just as many mistakes in my day-to-day life, and I run into just as many frustrations and heartaches as anybody else. But as I sat with these questions for a while, I realized what people were really asking me was, how did I heal? How did I find peace with everything that had happened to me? How did I walk away from all of that trauma and somehow manage to build a life full of good things, like love and trust and passion or joy, things I had little to no experience with given my traumatic background? And that was something I actually had an answer to. And that answer is what led me to develop a new show that I'm going to call A Well-Cared-For Human. A Well-Cared-For Human is basically a show that outlines everything I did to get well again, every time something terrible happened. It's my blueprint for how to move from survival mode to thriving mode, how I rebuilt my relationship with myself, and the tools that have been the most helpful to me in that adventure. And I'm going to call it an adventure. I'm not going to call it a journey because I hate that word. Please join me on a journey. I can't do that. No. So we're going to do adventure. It's a solo conversational show. At least for now, maybe in different seasons down the road, I can invite other people to share their stories. But for now, I'm just going to start with me talking about things that happened. So I'll still be telling stories, but not quite as cohesively as I did in Who Killed My Mother. Who Killed My Mother was a direct narrative, right? We had a beginning, a middle, and end, and I left out a lot of stuff that didn't fit that form. I had to leave out everything that had nothing to do with her death or our relationship so that I could craft a story. That's just the writer in me. Writers have to make the decision what to leave out for the sake of cohesion. So when I say you don't know the half of it, I mean that quite literally. I didn't get to talk about a lot of the things that happened in my life, things that really broke me down as a person, and I would argue in many ways messed me up way more than what I went through with my mother. But the objective is very direct. It's a solo show about how I rebuilt my life, how I learned to take good care of myself, how to love myself. And that's kind of the problem, right? People say love yourself, but what the hell does that mean? Like, if I knew how to love myself, I would have done it. You can't just say to me, "Kory, you know what you need to do after all of the trauma? You just need to love yourself." Well, tell me what that means. I need a 5-step plan. I need to know what I'm supposed to be doing every day. What does that even look like in the life of where I am now, etc.? A lot of vague platitudes were really unhelpful to me, and I don't want to do that for you. And that's basically what the podcast is about. I want to show you how I became a well-cared-for human, because I was absolutely not a well-cared-for human for the majority of my life. So what is a well-cared-for human? Well, it's someone who has a great relationship with themselves, someone who's proud of themselves and loves themselves, someone who knows how to take care of themselves, how to identify and meet their needs, someone who knows what to do with grief and heartbreak and loneliness and anxiety and stress and overwhelm, someone who knows what to do when things fall apart and shit gets real. Who is the show for? Well, basically anyone who wants to rebuild a better relationship with themselves. Someone looking for encouragement and support. Someone who wants a more in-depth analysis of vague platitudes like love yourself, be kind to yourself, and what exactly that means, and your actionable steps toward achieving those goals rather than just vague notions of what these concepts are and how we're supposed to use them. As for why I'm launching this podcast now, it's because we have never needed it more. I just finished reading a study about how the global prevalence of depressive disorders rose by 28% in 2020, anxiety disorders rose by 26%, and a study tracking calls to helplines in 19 countries says that we were up 35% compared to pre-pandemic levels, with callers expressing unprecedented levels of fear and loneliness. Cigarette sales increased for the first time in 20 years in 2020. Alcohol retail sales jumped 20.4%. So clearly we are self-medicating either because we've lost family members or because we're feeling isolated or worried about our health. We've got anxiety about war and economic insecurity and housing insecurity and healthcare insecurities. All of this is traumatic. Even if you yourself doesn't have a childhood's worth of baggage to sift through already, you can pick any of the 3,000 things that have just happened in the last couple of years, and I'm sure you will find something that's stressing you out. So I think the podcast is timely because we've all got something to deal with right now, and a lot of us would like more tools of how to deal with that stuff. Anyway, my point is, we're on edge, we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, we're anxious and tired at the very least. More probably, we're lonely and we're heartbroken. And not to brag, but I have a lot of experience in all of these areas, in really profound and difficult ways. So I hope that by showing you how I climbed out of those pits before, you'll be able to find a way to cope with whatever's happening with you. So, if you're interested in self-care or interested in wellness tools, or even if you're just interested in hearing more crazy stories from my insane life, possibly have a few laughs at my expense, then you can head over to my new channel and subscribe to the new show, A Well-Cared-For Human. The cover is blue, there's my face on it. This was a picture that was taken in a Korean restaurant, and it was like the best picture I had of myself, so please ignore that and just subscribe anyway. You'll be notified when the new episodes drop very soon, probably in the next week or so I don't want you to miss it. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to starting this new adventure with you.